No matter your age, your plan for retirement can start today. From the News Channel 5 Network, this is the Retirement Report.
Good morning. Welcome to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Barrett, your host. All right, we're going to be talking about healthcare costs. This is one of the interesting things. Today in the news, of course, there's a lot about healthcare costs, right? Because what are we talking about? New healthcare bill, possibly. How's that going to affect healthcare costs in our country? And for us as individuals, what impact is it going to have? There's a report by the Milliman Medical Index. The Milliman Medical Index comes out each year. And this year they find that and they track basically the average cost of healthcare. So the average cost of healthcare cost for the average family of four, typical family of four in the United States this year has gone up to almost $27,000. Okay, and that's for a family of four with an employer-sponsored plan where the employer is paying part of it, and the out-of-pocket cost for the employee is calculated at about $12,000 per year. All right, now that is just on the healthcare costs. And guess what? Prescription costs have gone up 8% this year. And now we're thinking, okay, that's when you're working. What happens when you retire and you go on to Medicare? All right, now does that mean your worries are over as far as out-of-pocket costs? Unfortunately, that's not the case. What happens then on Medicare? You've got Medicare Part A. No costs for you, but there are out-of-pocket costs still associated with it. There's no premium cost, but you have deductibles and coinsurance. Part B, now you have a premium cost of approximately $120 a month per person, all right? So for a couple, right, that's each of you, and you still have deductibles and coinsurance. Then you have what? You have prescription costs possibly, and that could cost you another $30 to $40 depending on the plan. And again, that's out of pocket. And yes, there are still deductibles and coinsurance you have to pay. So now we've got all those costs added up, right? We've got $150 there. And then guess what? All those deductibles and coinsurance we mentioned. So now you're going to need a Medicare supplement plan. And there's another $100 to $150. You could be talking $250 to $300 per month per person. That's $500 to $600 a month for a couple, right? Now we're talking $6,000 to $7,000. And there can still be out-of-pocket costs for things not covered under those plans. All right, that's traditional or original Medicare. There's also Medicare Advantage plans, and they can have, but you still potentially are going to have out-of-pocket costs there. And guess what? We're not done, because then what happens? Right? It doesn't cover long-term care costs. What about home health care if that's needed? What about assisted living? What about nursing home costs? You know, how do we get those costs covered? Well, today I have a special guest to help us with that. All right, we're going to be talking long-term care, healthcare costs in general, Medicare as well, but also and Medicaid, and how those two work, by the way, but also long-term care. My guest is Phyllis Shelton. I'm going to get their book up on the camera there. All right. Phyllis wrote the book, Protecting Your Family with Long-Term Care Insurance, and it's a complete guide to long-term care planning. And we're going to get into a lot of different things about long-term care, and somewhere in here, here it is. For the first 10 callers, we're going to do something special for you as well. Here's another little booklet. It's called The ABCs of Long-Term Care Insurance. So for the first 10 callers to my office, all right, we talk about comprehensive planning all the time, a retirement income analysis, complete, full, comprehensive financial plan, and yes, that includes an analysis for long-term care, what your needs may be there, how best to cover that cost, different strategies to employ to minimize that cost for you. And we do investment analysis, and we talk about Social Security and when the best time to take that is, how to minimize taxes on your Social Security benefits, on your investments, and of course overall. Because it's not just what you make, it's what you keep, right? And we want to keep more in your pockets and less going to the IRS. So tax planning is an important part of your long-term planning when it comes to your retirement income and how you're going to make sure that you're able to maintain your standard of living and quality of life no matter how long you live. So for the first 10 callers to my office, 615-376-5325. Tess is standing by. She'll take your calls. She'll gather your information. She'll send you out a packet of things, a packet to fill out, as well as a checklist of things to bring to your appointment with me, and I will do up this comprehensive plan. Whether it takes 1 visit, 2 visits, however much it takes at no charge to you, that's what I'm offering to you this week. So again, first 10 callers, 615 376-5325. Tess is standing by. She'll get your information and she'll get that out to you. If you're watching the show on one of our repeats over the weekend, yes, you can still get in. We're going to make room for you, okay? So again, be one of those first 10 callers. And for those that come in to see me, guess what? I'm going to give you a free copy of my book, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom in Retirement. And because of my special guest today, we're going to also include, when you come in, the ABCs of long-term care insurance, okay? So, right into it, Phyllis.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in today.
I'm honored to be here.
It's a great book, and one of the things that I run into all the time with long-term care, of course, is people are concerned about the cost. Yeah. How to cover that. And do I need long-term care insurance? How do I make that, that determination? And then what does long-term care insurance cost? How much, those monthly premiums? A lot of people think that's very expensive, but is it also a part of what you are buying?
Yes. Well, I always ask people, you could probably come up with $300 a month or even $500 a month if you had to. But if you had to come up with $5,000 or $6,000 a month, would that impact your budget?
Right.
And I know you were talking about the family of 4, the $25,000 a year. Well, Hank, in 30 years, that's about what we're looking at per month for long-term care.
Right.
Per month.
Per month, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what I find, a lot of people expect their savings to do double duty. And as a financial planner, I know you look at those savings a lot to generate a lifetime income. Sure. Is that correct?
Yeah, one of the ways planning, it's about planning. There are ways that we can cover the cost of long-term care. Long-term care insurance, of course, you don't have to have, as an example, a lot of times we think that we have to have this policy that covers everything. In other words, it's going to cover 100% of the cost, but you still have other resources. You have Social Security. Maybe you have a pension. Maybe you have income from rental property. Maybe you have, and most likely will have, income from retirement accounts or investments. So you look at the whole pool, and from that you say, okay, here's the cost I've got to cover. Now how much insurance do I need? So that's part of what we do in comprehensive planning, is narrow it down. And
that's the right way to do it. That's the way I work with people as well. I have changed with the way I'm working in the last few years. Ever since I got into long-term care insurance, which was, we're going back to 1988, prehistoric here. And I was in healthcare before that, healthcare financing for 10 years. So I've seen managed care come in. I've seen the whole gamut. And I really believe that long-term care is the last brick in the wall. But what I have been fighting all these years is that long-term care insurance is nursing home insurance.
Right.
And if you look at the universe of people who need the kind of care we're talking about, less than 15% ever wind up in a nursing home. And now we have the claims experience to prove that. So I think a good place for us to start this morning would be to define what long-term care means. How would you get a claim paid? Right. If you had an insurance policy.
This is a good point. And, one of the things I'd like to get into as we, leading up to that, is where you understand. One of the things that comes in when people don't really understand how long-term care works. So, as an example, what does Medicare cover? Okay, if you had even health insurance, what it covers? And this is where, with your traditional health insurance policy, even if you're younger, you can have an event. I've seen, unfortunately, people in their 40s and 50s even have a stroke or have a medical situation where they ended up in long-term care, in rehab, or even in assisted living, or some form of long-term care. So their health insurance isn't going to be enough to cover that. The next part is going to be, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, but before, when we come back, we're going to talk about how this affects you if you have health insurance, how it affects you if you have Medicare. What does Medicare cover and what doesn't? And the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, and where that comes in, and what your responsibilities are going to be, and what the quality of care you're going to receive may depend on what your resources are. There's a lot to get into this morning, but first a quick break. Join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.